Hi everyone. It is just yeah, it's the one. Hi everyone. Great to see all of you. What I would like to go through today is two things. The first is what is the importance of the unionized the workforce, and secondly, how the unionized the workforce actually the affects the outcome of the negotiations, as well as the national bargaining. So the first thing I want to basically to go through is obviously to ask the question of trade union, what trade unions do, right? So if you ask any the FE members, what is the purpose of the trade union? Obvious answer is going to be trade union speaks on behalf of its members. The trade unions provide members information, advice, guidance about the work-related issues. So more or less, it is around basically what we gain as an individual or as a the collective group of the teachers, lecturers from the union. But what we don't see much is basically wide role of the trade union in in the community. So the trade union cannot be just the expressed or explained with the what members can benefit from it as in terms of the material well-being, but it is beyond that. How about the social justice, for instance? Is it part of the union? The movement is completely isolated, or racism, rise of the far right, as well as the public sector, the accountability, all these things. It should be ingrained, and it was ingrained in the trade union movement since it was established. So therefore, the containing trade unions, the members, the benefit, it is a bit, the injustice, the reason that the union, they exist. So what I want to look at today is something a bit quite important. For instance, there is a big debate is currently going on whether the trade union density or membership of the trade unionism does have any effect in terms of our the bargaining power. The obvious answer is yes. But before I go into the details, I'm going to pass this one that's not important. I want to show you the graph in here. This graph is basically showing us the membership of the trade union density across some the countries. And the green one, the top one is Scandinavian countries, whereas the European Union is mostly the red one. And then you've got United States, which is at the bottom, and then you've got United Kingdom, which is with that the purple type of pink type of the color down there. Since 1980s, we can see that the union movements or union the basic membership is going down massively, particularly in UK as well as in United the States. But what does it mean? That in terms of the inequality, in terms of the basically the reflecting itself on the membership. If you look at the trade union density, the countries who have the highest trade union density, they have the less inequality in terms of the income distribution. That's why they're quite established. If you look at, for instance, Iceland in here, their trade union density is higher than any other country in the world. And obviously that the income, the distribution in terms of the inequality, it is less compared to any other the country. But if you look at the United States, which is in here, this is the most richest country in the world, whereas their trade union density it's hardly exists. It is more or less quite similar to like the Turkey or Mexico. And then the income distribution is massively disproportional in terms of the how much money is distributed among the workforce. So what it also tells us is that just having the trade union density without national bargaining power, again, it is not a big, massive the basic difference you will see. You may have too many the union members, but if there is no national bargaining power behind that the membership, then obviously that it does not manifest itself a lot. If you look at that the table in here, for instance, we can see that the Belgium is being centralized in terms of the the national bargaining, and that the basic the income distribution, it is much more higher than any other country. If you look at other countries such as the Greece, the Romania, Hungary, and UK included, the hardly there is any the national bargaining. Although UK has a little bit some in terms of the teachers union, for instance, the RMT, for instance, the rail workforces, some of them, they have, the national bargaining, whereas, the many other, the trade unions do not have, the national bargaining power. As a FE, we've been, trying to get basically national bargaining on the agenda for a long time. And to our surprise, so far, it's been, basically pushed backwards, saying that, the members are not ready, the branches are not ready. It is important, to build up the branches before we have a national bargaining. Now we came, this year, and we noticed that, the school teachers are getting 5.5% the increase, whereas, we FE teachers didn't get anything, and we will be lucky to get anything, even though our, the employee body, they recommend 2.5%. So it is not a surprise that FE's been falling behind of, the payment in last, the 15, 16 years, because we don't have any national bargaining power. If we don't have that, I don't see that how we can basically make a case, make a strong case, the nationally to get, the employers to be on the side of, the basic, on the side of us to demand a bit better pay and condition in FEs. So that's what I want to just describe in here.
Great, thank you. I think that's really useful, like being able to see that very kind of concrete data and information about why we need to have trade unions and have them organised as well. I've just noticed that David Hunter is here with us, Vice President of UCU. So a big welcome and thank you very much for coming along to today's session. Next up, we have got John Phones, who is on UCU NEC. He's at Bridgewater and Taunton College and a lot of trade union work and is now a national pay negotiator too. So welcome.
Thank you. For what it was worth, national pay negotiator. I must admit, I was surprised at, well, perhaps I wasn't surprised at how much of a sham the whole process seemed to be. Really, I must admit. What I wanted to talk about a little bit today really was the sorts of things that we might be campaigning on. And some of my priorities will not perhaps be the same priorities that everybody else has in their own local campaigns. And unfortunately, we seem to be reduced at the moment to trying to organise locally. The momentum for a national campaign and of course national action is no longer with us. And I know that there may well be colleagues here and certainly online who were very much in favour of the decisions made by the sector conference earlier in the year, where we decided not to go for national action. I have my own opinion about that, and in my opinion, it was a very regrettable step, simply because I feel that as a result of that, we completely lost our momentum in terms of our ability to bargain collectively. But I'm quite sure that other people will disagree with me over that. I wanted to mention some of the things that I think we ought to be making priorities in terms of our claims, and it may well be that there is some degree of congruence, if you like, between our local claims and our national claims. But I think more than anything else, we need to be, as far as we possibly can, insisting to our principals that they fall in with the idea of binding national negotiation. That seems to be an absolute priority. Without that first step, I don't think that we can really make any ground in terms of all the other things that we desperately need in our national claim and in our national campaign. So I think I'm going to mention binding national negotiation. I may be able to mention a higher starting salary, a long-term strategy, possibly even moving towards things like national pay scales. Now, of course, I'm not now talking about things that we are necessarily going to be able to achieve this year, but I do think it's an aspiration we ought to have. I also think we should have an aspiration to move towards a national FE service. In fact, if you were to question me further, I would actually like to say it should be a nationalised FE service. Because I think that we need to be trying to move back and address the deficiencies that we are now dealing with as a result of the 1992 Education Act, the Further Education and Higher Education Act. That was one of the things that created all of the issues that we have now, and I think we have to be constantly addressing that. I also want to mention, if I get time, GCSEs. I really think that we do our students a huge disservice nowadays in forcing so many people to sit in examinations which are really not fit for purpose in terms of those students. So many students sit those exams and get nowhere with them, absolutely nowhere. And yet it's one of the benchmarks that we're being held up to. I think we certainly need to address that. So binding national negotiation then, if I can just say a little bit about that. We certainly need to move beyond the position where we are now, where essentially we still have, or we have, as a result of 32 years of action on the part of our principals, we have a whole collection of local fiefdoms, if you like. What our principals are essentially trying to do, or they have been doing for many, many years, is to create wonderful small empires for themselves to the detriment of the people who work in those empires. And I think we need to recognise that and recognise that binding national negotiation is really the only way out of that situation. I won't say any more about that at the moment. I'll move on to saying something about a higher starting salary. We have in our national claim at the moment a claim for a starting point of £30,000. That is still now below the point that the NEU and the other teaching unions have managed to negotiate with the government for their new starting salary. So we're already behind on that again. So we need certainly to deal with that. And of course, we also need to consider all of our other colleagues, our other members of staff, who in many cases needs to be on a real living wage. We have so many people in our colleges who are either on or only just above the national living wage. It's a real standard. We certainly need to address that. We need to be thinking in terms of a national further education service. And in order to do that, we need to think in terms of several years of movement towards that point. I think we certainly do have to revisit 1992, and some people here will remember that time. I remember the time before that, when in 1987 I first moved into further education from a school, and my salary went up as a result of moving into further education. Most people don't remember those times. Since then, of course, it's been eroded and eroded and eroded. And I think we certainly have to try to deal with that by allowing everybody who works in further education to be looking at the same pay, the same conditions of service. Thank you. I will try to move perhaps to the question of GCSE English and Maths, and just think about the numbers of students who manage to get anything out of the current system at all. I think if you are in a college where your students who are sitting GCSE, and we have vast numbers of them who do that. In my college at Bridgewater and Taunton, we closed down the whole college for GCSEs. We have 800 students sitting GCSE English in the summer. Well, you can be fine. Okay, but whatever happens, a lot of other things close down as a result of it. A-level teaching, vocational teaching, it all stops because we're trying to deal with the GCSE, I don't know, priority, so-called. And those students, if you're very, very lucky, and perhaps luck doesn't come into it, 20% of them might achieve a grade 4. Probably not even that. Probably not even that. Yeah. So we certainly need to address that. So I think we really do need to consider all of these issues. And in order to do that, one of the things that we have to be considering, and I know that behind the scenes we have national officers in various different departments who are certainly talking to government. But I think that we all need to be much more aware of the fact that in order to achieve some of the things that I've referred to, for example, national pay scales and a national further education service, we need new legislation. We need a new legislative settlement for further education. And that's not going to be something that we can achieve right back this year. There is a great deal of work that needs to go into that. I don't believe that it's impossible. I don't believe that it's impossible to get the right sort of funding that's going to come into colleges from the DFE, because I think we have some very clever people in the DFE and the Treasury, whatever we might think about their ages and so on. Nevertheless, I think they should be able to come up with a proper funding formula which will fund everything that we do in colleges. So thank you very much, everyone. Let's hope that we can actually move forward together, and let's hope that we can see real congruence between everything that we do in the local bargaining and indeed our national bargaining as well. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, John. I think there was a lot, there was a lot in what John said about things that we may want to come back on and discuss when we kind of open it up for questions and debate. Next, I'd like to introduce Nina Kent, who has done a lot of work on adult community education and is also on NEC and Hackney.
Hi everyone, how are you doing? It's all right. Yeah, as Reggie said, I'm the rep for adult education, and I just want to kind of obviously state the obvious, but sometimes you have to state it, which is that adult education, like much of their field, is particularly about, and it is about social class and access to education, whether that is for life generally, or whether it's for work. But it's the adults that should decide. It's us who should decide. So why is it such an issue? Because over the last 20, 30 years, you see a lot of words in the media, lifelong learning is really important. But actually, if you drill down, you see that 50% of the adult education budget has been cut since 2010. And what that means is that it's vandalism of the education system, particularly for working class people who are denied that opportunity to get a job, get a life that they want for whatever reason. And it's a social justice issue because it's left millions of people in this country without that ability to be able to decide what they want to do in their life. And we have to look back now, but also we have to look back, but we also have to look at where we are now, which is we have a new Labour government and we have to make our demands very clear. We reject the instrumentalist approach and are for a transformative curriculum, which students build with teachers. That is one of the biggest things that FE in adult education has in its hand. And we can see that when they do that, students change themselves, teachers change themselves, the communities are impacted and families have a chance, a sense of hope. And we can see that when that's denied, like Coventry Adult Education, it cut its creches, it cut really important jobs in Coventry Adult Education that our communities suffer. But if you look at the roots of adult education, you can see that there's a massive history. You know, when Labour says, or the Conservatives say that there isn't enough money in the pot, or there isn't a radical tradition, that's wrong. It's totally wrong, because when you look back at adult education and its history, you'll see that over the last 100 years, going back to after the Second World War, there was a commission in 1919 that was set up, which was to look at how universities, yes, universities should provide adult education, and local government, local councils should provide adult education. And that was done at a time of acute political social upheaval, as you can imagine, after the war. And what happened was that there was an independent movement came forth from the Labour Party, from socialists, from trade unions, from women's groups, the Workers' Educational Association, and there was raging arguments going on in the Labour movement about who should decide what kind of education we have. You know, who makes that decision? And there was a fight really for independent working class education. Those education movements for radical social justice in the 1920s, opened up debates that are still going on now whether adult education or further education or any education really should be led by communities or whether it should be imposed on high from an elite group of people who are obviously, you know, we can see they're just so out of touch with what working people need. So from the height of adult education, 60s and 70s, we saw the Open University begin, trade union education courses, the national literacy and numeracy campaigns that were on our TV, the adverts that came into the daily newspapers. You might have seen those TV adverts. Yeah. It was called On the Move. Yeah. And there was a really great little advert. You know, you have the little van and it goes all around the country and it says On the Move. Yes, Bob Hoskins. Yeah, really good. I loved it. So going back to those debates, you know, we saw that from that time, neoliberal agenda came smashing down on education, all education. So, you know, I'm hoping that I'm trying to get the point across that we need to have an independent movement now, whether that's with Labour, without Labour, doesn't matter. If people want to unite and we need unity, we will have that unity, but we also have to strike out. And here's some demands to think of. The DFE to fund at least 6 billion to community education, develop a lifelong learning strategy in the spirit of the 1919 Commission, as argued by the Centenary Commission on Adult Education, Workers' Education and Resource Campaigners. 9 million adults at the moment have low or no literacy or numeracy. Incredible. 5th richest country in the world. 8 million have no qualifications at all. 5 million adults have assignments. So for the DFE should launch a national campaign like we did in the 70s. It can be done, the money's there, to have a national campaign on our TVs, in the press, in the media, social media, about how education can transform our lives and does. The acknowledgement of broader outcomes for adult education, not just cuts to arts, languages, humanities, no cuts to arts, languages, humanities. I'm just going to finish now. And to have capital investment in every town for an adult education centre. You can imagine if that had happened in the last couple of months. Invest in green jobs and skills. The biggest growth in employment is actually going to be in low carbon jobs. All FE and adult education teachers to have pay parity in national binding agreements. Abolish Ofsted and inclusive monitoring practices, and for a liberated, inclusive curriculum that includes everybody, as John and others have said, includes all of us, united for a better education system. And just on this last point, if we neglect it, if we neglect these things, we have to say to government, putting that money in is going to save you a hell of a lot more than if you neglect education. And you can see what happens. Different narratives are playing at the moment. And I'll leave it there to say that if we don't fill up those narratives with hope instead of despair, you know, other things can come forward. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. I think that was really brilliant input of what kind of education that we should be looking for and fighting for as well. Next up, and our last speaker before we go into the discussion is Sean Grinnell. He is branch secretary at City Islington and on NEC.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, thank you for that speech at 9. I could have listened for another 20 minutes, so that's for half hour. It was fascinating and really, for me, hits the heart of what really we are about in further education. We call it the Cinderella sector. I get tired of ridiculous ways of describing our sector, but these are things that people talk about. I mean, it is a sector that deals with some of the most vulnerable and most disadvantaged people in our society. You know, when politicians and the like talk about further education, we really haven't got the faintest idea what they talk about, and it's for one reason only, and it's a class issue. They don't send their kids to the places where we teach it. It's as simple as that. And until they do, they'll never get it. And that's why we need the kind of campaigns, the kind of movements that Nina has spelled out so brilliantly just a minute ago. So thank you very much for that. I have to say something, as a GCSE teacher, I wasn't heckling you, by the way, I was just supporting you and trying to compete with you in terms of 800.
Very well.
That's okay. 800, my good God, that's nothing. And in my college, just my site. One site of City Institute College, that's Camden Road, where I teach. There are 850 GCSE English students and 1,100 GCSE maths students. There is a crisis of teaching of English and maths in British society. You cannot have 30% of school students not getting a grade 4 or above in English and maths and think everything's going swimmingly well. The Govian changes that Gove made, obviously, in 2014, whenever it was, has wreaked absolute havoc within education and has abused our young people. Let's call it what it is, abuse. To get our young people to resit again, as far as I know, is abuse. And they know it, quite frankly. And that's why, for all sorts of young, I support John's point. You know, when there was 15% of students that didn't get through, there'd be a huge national outcry. 30%, you don't hear anything. 30%, you have to really hit yourself to get this right. Failing our students leave school without grade 4 in English and math. Wow, there's a crisis in the teaching of English and math in that. And I don't blame the teachers, by the way. And it's the Govian changes and the ridiculousness that come with it. So I think absolutely to reinforce those two parts of what we're about. Of course, we teach all sorts of other things, but the heart of us is about our students, about what we do, and therefore the campaigns we're involved with is about that. You know, the slogan which we say, the conditions that we teach in are the conditions that our students are learning, is not just a slogan, it actually means something in terms of what we are trying to do here today. I want to very quickly then just, concertina really, what we've done, how we need to go through on the question of paying and the national campaign. John's made a really good argument why we need national one, and so has Mustafa. I think some of those figures, Mustafa, are really important to show how planting, where you have it, guess what? Inequality is much lower. Where trade unions exist, more powerful, the inequality is also lower. So the argument was put well, I think there. So I'm not going to cover that too much. He said, well, look, what have we been trying to do in further education in the last, since 2016, actually, when the Trade Union Act changed, when we had to have a 50% thresholds. We had to move to sort of, right, we can't get there. Some of us agree that rather than do nothing, we'll try and to work together to try and get a coalition of women on the ground, in the colleges, to try and fight. You know, I remember the famous slogan by Margot Hill was, we have to put like lots of mini bonfires on the arses of the employer. Really great speech at the time, I remember it, echoed around the room and still gets quoted, probably wrongly by some people, but never quoted time and time again. And we did it. We did it successfully. Make no mistake about it. It was a successful campaign. You know, my college, CCG, City Islington, Canal, and Westminster, Kingsway, we're on strike. I forget now. I always forget. There's so many times I enjoyed it, but lots of top colleges. I'm not going to list them all. Stafford had a good pop at it, and so on and so forth. Right? And we've won things. You know, we had several 10-day strikes. I think we've gone from 39,000 to almost 50,000 in the last 6 years. You know, that's not bad. 10 extra grand in your pocket because of strike action and other things. We have now the hourly paid staff, and it has to have a policy where every 3 years they have to be automatically given permanent person. I could go on and on. And there's other colleges who've done well. So it's successful. But we also said at the time, it is not an end in itself. You cannot fight college by college because it's a national crisis. It's a national problem. And therefore, the only way you do this is build up the muscle here so that you can be in a position to launch a national campaign so that you can actually start to level up the sector. That was our argument. And to be honest, everybody seemed to agree. But of course, as it unfolded, it wasn't actually what someone suspected. It was just some people who argued that our union were quite happy to support their strikes on the local level, as long as it just means they don't have to do it. And applaud very, very heartily those who do. Very nice. I'm right behind you. You carry on with this kind of stuff. You look behind you, and there's of course nobody there at all, except for the same old suspects. The heavyweight lifting done by many London branches and 1 or 2 outside of it and so on. So that's where we got to. But we have said and have continuously argued, we now have to move on. And we're in a position to do so. You see, something that's really important has changed. I mean, we've got to get heads around this. And this is where the National Union has simply been negligent on it. They didn't get it. They've got it now, but they haven't got the punchline which goes with it. And we said this, look what's happened. In fact, I got approached by my HR person in London several months ago now, 6 months ago. By the way, all London FE principals are seriously interested in getting a national binding agreement. I said, really? Okay, why is that? He said, well, we're sick and tired of you parking your tanks on analog in September. Get it set up with that, right? Okay. Well, the reason was not just that, because the competition for jobs inside the sector is so great at the moment in time. It's a repeater that everybody compete with each other. We want to be able to level up so we don't keep having these. So for their own reasons, and if you like, we've coincided. Our interests and theirs seem to have coincided. And I've said it 2 minutes ago. And I've said this on a number of occasions. We said it on a number of occasions, did we not? At the NBC. Oh, we've got back these arguments. No. They're not interested in AOC part of power. And by the way, what's the point of negotiating with AOC? Because the AOC are useless, we know that. But also, they don't have the power to do so. Nonsense. We said that's a lie. They have the power. They do have the power they want to do. It's a choice. They haven't decided not to do it up to this point. And of course, the members aren't ready. And some went further, by the way. Some law, but some who opposed our strategy of nationalised arguments and go to a national campaign said, well, really, we're saying we don't really want to go back there. 1993, we severed our links with the local government, and that's how it is. We've got to learn to live in the real world, which is, localised bargaining, and that's how it is. And some people quite like the systems, not just the employers, by the way. But that's another one for another time, perhaps. So there we are. That's the situation we find ourselves. And now, what my fear is, it's not we've been proven 100% right. We are now in negotiations. The employers nationally are in the negotiations with us to talk about a national binding structure. So those who argue that we're wrong, let's be clear about it. And the AOC do have the power to implement it. So those who argue they don't, we're wrong. Let's be absolutely clear. This is a change, that is significant. Those who put those arguments have been mistaken. And why is that important? Because it led them to a situation whereby we're now being played like a bloody banjo, quite frankly. Their side knows what they're doing, our side is playing around. We don't have the muscle. Nothing works. There's nothing worse. I mean, anybody in local negotiations, anybody will tell you, if you're in a local negotiation and you don't have some industrial ballot in your back pocket, that you get knocked about in those bloody negotiations, but you have nothing. Because the employees looking at when you negotiate, it's not your clever discussions or wonderful eloquence is the key to it. I wish, if it was, we all won many years ago. It's not about that. It's not about your eloquence. What it's about, they look at you and have one eye on you and one eye over your shoulder. And if you've got a bit of muscle, you've got a bit of strength, you've got a bit of collective power, then they'll listen to you. If you don't, they'll just whack you around the room. And that's what we're like at national level at the moment. We're in that room, they go, they want it. So my concern is this, not that they won't give us national bargaining. I think that's quite likely. The danger is here, what kind? On whose terms? Right? And if you've got no muscle in that room, you know whose terms it's going to be. It ain't going to be allowed to. And then you try and get a campaign off the ground, try to unpick a national bargaining agreement. Oh, difficult, I'll try, but my good God, that does not do. Having a campaign where you're trying to win national bargaining, leverage as it's being negotiated, then actually it's much easier for you to try and construct a proper bargaining negotiation which is in our favour rather than theirs, rather than trying to unpick it after it's been said about. So every way you look at this, I don't like to say we've been proven right, but we have. But unfortunately, at the moment, whilst the National Union has now recognised that is the case, and got a national campaign of national binding, lots of leaflets coming out about it, excellent. Punchline? None. Absolutely zero. We put a motion, a simple motion, a quite moderate motion, to the last Further Education Committee, arguing for an indicative ballot for the 5.5% to be implemented. Are you prepared to take action if they don't? We drew it 9-9, didn't pass. It falls therefore because the state's got anti-kicks in, you don't pass it. So we've got nothing, we've got a lovely little campaign with no teeth whatsoever. And that's our problem here. So my last point goes with this. I hope, what I'd like to suggest to you people in the room and get more to involve, if the National Union refuse to do anything of significance around this, we can't allow the moment we're in to go without passing. Because if we do so, I think we're going to be in problems here. I suggest that we create our own indicative ballot, our own one, and we get as many colleges across the country to say, right, we'll organise on a certain week, or over a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, 30, 40, 50 colleges, as many as we possibly can, to say, you know, are you prepared to take some that's acting over the 5.5%, etc., you know, and see what we do. When we say we've got 2.5%, well, really, what do you bloody expect? What do you expect? If you're not prepared to take action, if you've got nothing on the ground, well, they're not going to give you anything, are they? Can't these not ABC arguments we need to put? So that's the, amongst other things, for us to discuss if we should take that initiative and see if we can use that to get our members moving and to push our union to do so for Christ's sake, rather than play like a banjo, which the Irish members tonight.
Good, I think that gives a very kind of strong analysis of where we're at and kind of a plan of where we can start trying to make some movement. Now's the time to sort of open it up. I put out chairs for all the speakers to sit in front, but no one decided to sit there. So we're going more casual conversation. This conference is about trying to get organising and get action and think about what we can practically do. So that's fine, but we don't want to have a top table, that's all good. But yeah, so open it up for in the room, online, for any questions, contributions. We've got about 40 minutes and then I'll bring the speakers back in to kind of sum up, but yeah. Sorry, I should have said, can you come a bit closer to the front because of the mic?
It's
Sorry,
all right, it will,
all the way from the back room.
it will pick it up, it's okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't all have to come.
Yeah. Say who you are.
Where's the mic here?
There.
Yeah, it's long range. Don't worry.
Hi, Safia Fissi from South and City College, Birmingham, and also in the LEC. My question is, and I feel how you feel, Sean, but my question is for you, Sean. The argument we're facing with our leader is about this national. AOC hasn't got any power, and what I'm hearing from Paul Bridge is that legally that is the case. And I'm struggling to understand because he's got an argument and I can't, when I would like to go back to, I'm very sorry. I would like to, I would like to be able to say to my members, I would like to have a counter argument, if you like, and I'm struggling to have that.
Yeah, I'll come back, absolutely, no problems.
Okay, good. I've seen Peter online, if you want to unmute and introduce yourself.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah.
Bit muffled.
Okay, so
Wait 1 moment, we're just going to try and turn the speaker on. Yeah, okay, go.
okay, can you hear me better now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Peter Evans, I work at West London College. I'm also on the NEC and FEC, and you know, echo what Sean said about the last vote at FEC 9-9. So basically nothing is happening. And then I think about Sean's comments about having having an indicative ballot, and I think we could call it the teacher's indicative ballot, because that is something that we need. Let me tell you about West London College. Last year, I think it was 7.2 or 7.1% offer was made, and people in the branch were encouraged to accept that straight away, jumped up and said, oh, yes, yes, yes. There was dissent amongst membership, but it went out to some sort of e-vote or e-ballot or something like that. And they lapped it up and said, yes, we'll take that. This year, the chief executive has turned around and said, oh, we might be able to scrape together 2% or 2.1%. It's very difficult. We gave you a good offer last year, but this year things are very difficult. And the same people who, or not the same, but many of the people who last year jumped and took the 7.1 are now saying, what? We're not going to take that. We're going to reject that if that's what's going to be offered. And do you know what? A lot of those people who were saying, let's just negotiate locally, have now started saying, we need to negotiate nationally. Otherwise, of course, we'll get these rubbish, insulting pay offers. So the mood is changing. And the hierarchy within our union needs to recognize that. And one way they can recognize that is by taking note of a teacher/lecturer's indicative ballot in the way that Sean described it. And I would encourage us to develop the discussion around it and not just discuss it, but let's get on and do it so we get a decent pay rise. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that's really good of thinking about like the change that has happened within our branches and how the mood is changing. Any more hands, contributions? Okay, Mr. Firth then, Mark.
Just, every single time, when there is a, the new deal or the sort of proposal from our, the UCU headquarters, one of the demands we have every single year is to bridge the gap between school teachers and FE lecturers. But it seems that this gap is getting, wider and wider. So we are failing from our promise that we should bridge that gap. Now, it's 2.5% offered to the FE, the teachers. I don't think many colleges are going to they implement it, and if some of them will implement it anyway. So without going through a proper the basically the consultation as well as proper their fight, right? There is no way we will be able to convince our members that we did fight and therefore we couldn't achieve, but we will accept 2.5%. If currently we are try to accept 2.5%, particularly our membership in our college, they're going to lynch us, right? I wonder, you've been promising that the bridge is going to be the closed between school teachers and FE, but we're accepting 2.5% without any sort of fight, without any sort of basically the bargaining, proper bargaining.
Yeah, definitely.
Shall I?
No, apparently it's high time.
Yeah, thank you to all the speakers and thank you in particular to Sean's final proposal on taking the initiative to conduct an indicative ballot ourselves, college by college. I think given what's happened at the last FEC, I find it unbelievable that the idea that members shouldn't at least voice their feelings, and particularly on the grounds they used, which was the resolution at the last special sector conference that that decision had been the decision to proceed to an aggregated ballot was boycotted. Therefore, we cannot have an indicative ballot simply to establish what members are feeling. And that result could, I mean, why should that result feed simply into into the idea of an aggregated national ballot? It could be used simply to re-establish the necessity for a coordinated action this year. Because I see it, last year we had, a reasonable success in at least coordinating some kind of action. At the risk now, so we don't even have that this year. So I think we should proceed to doing what Sean said as quickly as possible. The second thing I wanted to say was, yes, binding national bargaining. I don't see how we can achieve anything significant either on pay or workload until we have this binding national bargaining agreements thing. I mean, it's just not going to work. So I mean, yeah, the danger is that it's become such a being made into such a complicated issue that unless we take really robust initiative to lay down a plan to take the bull by the horns and do something about it, again, the years are just going to slip by. So I wanted to ask Sean, what, okay, I get your point about, the danger of, well, the binding national bargaining there's a good chance we'll be given this, but the danger is that it won't be on the terms that we want. Well, what kind of terms, how do we want to see it? And once we've established that, what can we actually do to get on with it? Yeah, what's the plan? I mean, it'd be nice to walk out of this room this afternoon with a, you know, some sort of clear idea as to the next steps and what we can be doing in our local branches to kick this thing off, because, you know, I'm going on a bit, but I'll shut up for the rest of the afternoon. I mean, what's happened now is that the, you know, there seems to be some kind of unity now within the union itself, that this binding national bargaining is important. Everyone seems to agree. But yeah, but nothing's been done. These posters have been produced. And week after week we're being told, well, come on, get on with it, get campaigning. But nothing's happening in my college, and I'm very active within my branch. But you know, there's only so much you can do within your working day. It needs to be a much more unified and concerted effort. I'm not sure what form that will take, but yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'll take Richard, and then do we have any other contribution? And then maybe you should come in and go a little bit of detail.
Okay.
No?
Could I just come in again in a
Yes,
moment?
okay. So Richard, John, and then yeah. No,
Yeah, Richard, UCU College, I'm on the FEC as well. I just want to make a few points here. I mean, I think that there's been a big realignment that's taken place, which the union has not really caught up to in a number of different fronts. I mean, I think it's, you know, now there's a Labour government that have come in, although that they didn't give us the 5.5%, and you could talk about all the reasons why we have crap, but there's definitely a different space potentially opening up to at least have a dialogue that we wouldn't have had with the Tories, and would have that slant back in our face, especially how much we were able to influence the policy under Corbyn before. So that there is still a memory, I think, out there of some of the traction we started to get. But the fact that we've now got a situation where when you go to a meeting with the employers are using language like, oh, we would all like to get to the position where there was one national contract and one national pay scale, where we could overcome the unevenness of colleges in England. That's what the head of the AAC is saying, and then you go and talk to the union officials, and they're so far away from you in that position, you feel like you're going to, you know, what's going on here? The employers sometimes sound better than our union officials. So I think we've got ourselves in a real mess now in UCU. We've got to make, I think, quite a sharp turn back towards having a national identity for FE in England. That's the missing ingredient at the moment. I mean, I think the reasons that were given at the now infamous online September Special Sector Conference a year ago, a conference I think, you know, I was there as the vice chair in the room. I think it was a really stitched up conference. You know, it was a conference that voted against taking national action. I accept the decisions that were made there, but it was a big operation, I think, around it. You know, the head of FE Corporation, this was said to him at the FCC meetings. His lead office as secretary, as a full-time official, the secretary, was just a 20-minute diatribe really against why national action, and you know, this desperate list. It's illegal. It couldn't possibly ever be implemented. The employers will never go for it. It's not a majority view of the employers. We can't persuade them. Members won't fight. Even if members did want to fight, it would be illegal for us to get a national campaign. You know, quite a desperate list of stuff. And I think that the union have sowed those arguments quite deeply into it. Really a minority of reps in the union don't want to fight. People, I think, don't want national binding. They like, I mean, they're proposing little taken off them. People who don't ever want to go on strike at all. And I think we've got to correct that, because I think I think someone else, Safia said at one of the meetings we had, you know, we did get some momentum around a coterie of branches that went before and got some really good deals. Weren't generalised by the union, by the way. We tried to spread those around. But it's getting harder now. If I go back to my branch, we've had what, 3, 4, 5 ballots. It's quite difficult to say, right, do you want to do it again? Do you know what I mean? People say, well, where's everyone else? It doesn't feel like it matches up to government. What the fight is now. Government didn't give us a 5.5%, so I'm now going to have a punch up with my local boss to try and squeeze a couple more quid out back into something. It doesn't add up, so I think you've got to make a turn. And for me, I think that means we've got to stamp our feet around what democracy means in the union. I'll finish with this. We don't want online meetings where we can do meetings, where we can't challenge the agenda, we can't talk to another. We want in-person meetings. It's our union, and I think we want to have a proper discussion now. We want national action now. That's what's going to win binding. It will give a national voice about where our sector's going. So I think, yeah, we've got to get that fund. So the indicative ballot, it's a structure test. All right, David's online. We're all local branches now, okay, well, we all locally want to do an indicative ballot and show you what does it look like, and you put all them together, that there's actually a collective to fight, and now let's make it a national one.
Yeah, right.
Oh, thank you. Right, well, I just wanted to raise the issue again, actually, and I alluded to it earlier on with regard to talking about a national scale and so on as well. But we talk all the time, and our campaign all the time refers to the idea of parity with school teachers. And yet I think that very often we forget how much disparity there is between our individual branches and between our individual colleges. And I think this is something we definitely need to address. It does mean, unfortunately, we have the argument that comes from my principal, for example, who speaks, he says, on behalf of other principals in the Southwest. If we were to go for that, John, I'm afraid it would mean some colleges wouldn't get so much as other colleges. I'm not concerned, quite honestly, about some colleges not getting as much as another college a bit further down the road. What I'm concerned about is that everybody should be getting the same, and there should be parity with school teachers. Both of those things together. But the argument about getting all colleges on the same playing field, as it were, seems to be ignored, bypassed, said no to, if you like, by almost everybody who has a vested interest in it. And I think it's in all of our interests to get on board with that, because we did join this union to protect each other, but not just each other in our own branches. We're here to protect everyone across the whole country. And I think this is a really important part of that. Thank you.
Just 2 points really. Sorry, was it me?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, no, that's where you from.
Oh, sorry, Coventry Adult Education. As enrolment with learners, on the enrolment form, if you earn less than 32,000 as an individual, you are entitled to free bus tickets. I was just thinking that when 30,000 was mentioned, you know, and a lot of our staff are on less than 32,000. So where's our bus ticket? Going back to the density, union density across the UK, which needs really massive increases. Okay, so yeah, the thing is, when people get benefits of wage increases and improvements in working conditions, that's also for the non-members. They basically get the benefits that have been fought for by the unions, and I don't think people realise that. And if the unions were to just give up, where would we would just be left at the mercy of the employers completely. So people need to wake up and smell the coffee, because people need to join the union, because otherwise we are just at the mercy of the employers. So I think we need to remind people at work that, you know, you also get the benefits, because we have national pay negotiations, don't we? As part of the council, we have belong to the Youth Workers. We've got £1,925 pay rise if you're full time, and that's every year basically.
Yeah.
But, you know, that is negotiated by the unions and the non-members also get that. And people need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, very hard to put there. Taffy, did you want to come in?
Oh, just on what Richard said, and back to my question. I think the problem one of the problems we've got is that we hear what the plan is from our leaders, but we haven't. And I think it's also back to what you were saying, is we need to have our own plan and fight back the arguments that are putting on us. So I'm just curious to know what you're going to say to us, Sean.
That's it.
Seriously, I do struggle because I'm one of the colleges that we went on strike and we're starting to lose the battle with our members. They feel that they're tired. All they're seeing is the gap that one of our colleagues mentioned between the teachers in schools and teachers here, and only managing to have crumbs. You're talking, John, about parity. Yes, it is very true that it is a union at the end of the day. It seems to me that our leaders have forgotten this, and we tend to battle our own battle in our own college without realizing, and back to what you're saying, Christine, which is actually we are a good number of us, and I cannot understand why we are letting a few people dictate, because it is about democracy, isn't it? Dictate where we want to go, where our members want to go. They are very clear to us, and I'm sure they're very clear to us, to you as well. They want to have a decent pay, and we are not getting that. All we're getting are crumbs, if we're lucky. And I know I don't want to undermine what we've achieved in our branch, but there are still crumbs. There are still crumbs. That there is no comparison between what we've been winning to what we should be getting. There is no. We're far away, and I know we are the numbers, and we need to be heard. And I don't know how we can do that. I really can't. I have no.
Okay, my name's Andrew Miller. I'm an SCCB with exactly. I'll move you to all this union stuff. But I think we also have to take some responsibility for ourselves. And I think that the way we are speaking to the members is not robust enough in many cases. We're not really spelling out what is at stake in really clear, uncut, unvarnished ways. Because maybe it's because it's influenced by the sort of mealy mouth, oh, we're just going to be so nice because we want to be accepted as a union strategy from the top. And I think that we just have to be a lot more, dare I say, strident. Yes, that's it. Difficult. Be women and be difficult, and men and be difficult, you know. And I think because as Safia said, people are tired. Yeah, I mean, in our college, they bought off a lot of members by offering them £1,000 for another 24-hour teaching contract, and they went, okay, you know, without really talking through what the implications would be. And sorry, I don't think we were strong enough in actually laying out what that was as a union. We didn't really stand up and go, actually, this is what's going to happen. And people just voted for Christmas like turkeys.
Thank you.
One of the things I'm listening to this problem, and I remember where you're from now. Oh, sorry, Johnson College. One of the things that really peeved me off about being on the NEC, and I'm just going to be blunt with it, you know, it's a lot of things. We talk a lot, we vote a lot, it's agreed and passed, and then all of a sudden, okay, the same people that are supposed to be leading us are the ones that are sabotaging everything that we're doing. And I think we're going to get to the point where, to be honest, members are gonna say two things. I've told them before, members will start leaving, people will start voting with their feet. Because there's no point asking people to vote indicatively, e-voting and then postal voting and going through all of this, taking the time and energy to have meetings, only to be shafted at the last minute. You know, there's no point complaining, oh, you know, we haven't got a strategy. When are we gonna start? When are we gonna start? Even if it's 2 of us, 3 of us, 4 of us, 5 of us, we need to start. And it just seems to me that they haven't got enough backbones to do what they need to do. And to be personal, I'm going to be saying it just as it is. I think that I'm more effective outside than inside, if you understand what I mean, right? Because I thought that I don't want nobody to stifle what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't want nobody to tell me that I can't say what I paid to be here. I paid to be here. And I want people to represent me. I don't want people to be mealy mouthed and doing some foolishness, you know, because it's my future that I'm talking about. It's, you know, what I want my life to look like. I work hard, I want to be paid hard, and I want good working conditions. And I want the people that are in positions that are getting paid very good money to be in those positions to do what they need to do. And I just thought to myself, do you know what? I'm better off coming out because I can make more damage and say what I have to say, but nobody's stifling me. And that's the reason, one of the reasons why I stepped out, because I thought to myself, you know, it's very hard to stand in front of people and say, you know, let's vote. And, you know, we say all of these things to encourage, and then we have to go back and actually, you know, I know that we voted for this, but, you know, this happened and that happened. And people just get fed up because they think, well, why are we here? Why are we voting? And I think that it's really important that they hear this, and it goes back to whoever wants to say whoever or whatever. Because as far as I'm concerned, you know, these are big people, they haven't got time to waste. They haven't got time to waste. You're either for them or you're against them. If you don't want to do the job, step out of the position. Put somebody in place that wants to do it. Don't just grab the money for the sake of grabbing the money and not doing anything with it. So my thing is, you know, let's get on to it, because as much as we are a union, right, we can't have just branches by themselves trying to have these little local units. You're not getting it anywhere because we're so far behind everybody else. We need to come collectively. We need to move as one. And unfortunately, we're going to be now in the position that our branch members aren't interested in national binding. They're going to be saying, no, they're still for us because they're not doing anything for us. We don't want to be, you know, we don't want our members actually saying that. We're in danger of that happening. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's a speech of why you should be standing for it. Yes, Margot, I'm a retired member from Croydon branch. I share all the people in this room, particularly who are on the NEC, FEC, who are fighting. It is a really hard battle, and I appreciate the frustrations that, you know, Delina's voice. But I'll tell you what, if you weren't there, it would be that much worse. So I do applaud everybody who actually puts up with that. So the first thing to say. Secondly, the other thing is that most of the people in here do the do in their workplaces as well. What I actually wanted to talk about was this national bargaining is really, it pays a measure of the standard and the respect that's given to education. And I think when we've been successful in the past, if you look back on the back catalogue of stuff that's been written, Sean, you've written an awful lot of stuff, and the exam factory, all this kind of stuff we've got together, we can put together a really good case for, you know, if you look at what's gone on, we've got the schools exam factory, where a whole load of people are thrown out at the end without a passport to go any further. Make no mistake, all the GCSE English and Maths, it's a passport for the next stage in their life. If you don't get that passport, you're exiled. And you have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And, you know, someone who's really brilliant in design technology or something, and if a maths teacher was in the design meeting with them, would actually do applied maths in some interesting way, it's just having their head nailed to the table and getting desperate. And I mean, it's not, we all feel that as teachers. I think there's two things going on. When I left, there were two things in my mind. One was, could I afford to pay the heating bills? Okay, that was one thing. And anyone who thinks that poverty isn't a reality for every teachers, let alone our members who were support workers, they must have some
many of their family members are looking after them. But the reality is, it's very hard going at the moment. Austerity has hit us hard. The second is the lack of bloody respect I'm given. The idea that if you kick off or you ask for something, that in some way, maybe they should get someone cheaper who hasn't got your years of experience and might actually, you know, and then you find every now and then, even in a well-organised workplace, you find a little rogue manager that's got a load of unqualified funds, particularly around things like work placement and stuff like that. These Mickey Mouse activities go on when nobody's actually checked the training. So there needs to be a national picture. The government talks about getting national standards. We need that national picture. And the thing that made me tear my hair out was that, oh, there's a lobby of Parliament. I remember going down to a lobby of Parliament where we had all the students. I remember we made a big jigsaw. Actually, the management came down with us to that lobby. Everybody was outside Parliament arguing for the future of education. So they called it during half-term week for most people, and during the day when those who aren't on half-time are working. What the fuck? So next Wednesday, there might be me, maybe I'll have a few mates there, and some people from the National Office. And I'll go and see Rosina Khan. But I've actually got skin in the game now because I'm a retired member. But you know, this kind of thing is a problem. There are things there that we could do to inspire people. We know how to do it. We need to get it back on the table.
Yeah, definitely.
What time do we have to go?
We want to be leaving this room at 3:40.
Alright.
So we've still got a little bit of time and a bit of time for people to come back in on things. So yes.
Yeah, and really a question. Version we go by today. So a couple of things. I think just picking up on Richard and Rolina about getting the voice back in the union democracy. I was at those meetings last year. We led a successful strike, and it felt as though we were left on our own. And so now to go back to members this year and say, okay, can you sign a petition at some point it will be picked up? Really, it doesn't sit right with me. So I think we do need to get the voice back. We do need to get everyone's back in this. All of the things that we've spoken about today are about having a strong voice in FE. So things like GCSE and having that argument, if we can't do it as a sector, it's not going to happen. So yeah, it's just those points that I think they're all joined up. City, they're all linked together. Yes. Does anybody else want to come in and make a contribution, or a comment, or a question? Anyone online? Anyone's welcome to come in.
Can I pick up something? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Allocated teachers. And an allocated teacher, I think that there seems to be a hesitancy in really supporting improving what happens to us from a whole union perspective. And I don't know what the answer is, but just for an example, last week I was in staff room, one of the permanent members of staff said, oh, you know, we have to do, we're being just absolutely cracked already with this extra assessment because Ofsted. And one of the permanent teachers said, oh yes, and it's such a, it's unfair that the hourly paid teachers have to do the same thing with no IA. And so I said, well, why don't you stand up and say that to management? You know, and it's like, you know, it's all very well talking about allyship and racism and all that kind of stuff, but it comes down to a really basic level as another human being. And, you know, again, it's about looking at ourselves. What do we do? You know, what is our responsibility? You know, how are we going to use our human revolution, our development to get things going?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we just go briefly that I suggest, if we've got time, just there's one more, Peter wants to come back in again.
Oh, okay.
And then we just all sum up. No, right.
Yeah. Peter, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks very much. Hopefully you can hear me all right this time with this funny microphone. Anyway, I wanted to talk about other sectors. And I wanted to talk about the struggle in the supermarket sector, whereby women workers were told, actually, the job you're doing on the shop floor is not the same as what the men are doing in the warehouses. And they were told, oh, well, legally it's all correct, blah, blah, blah. And obviously this legal argument was put forward by management. Well, they united across the country, nationally, not just one supermarket chain, but other supermarkets within their union organizations nationally. And they challenged, and they were told, yes, the worth of your job is the same. And of course, management have now run away and they're getting expert counsel advice and all of this nonsense that of course they will do. But it is because the workers came together collectively in the different sectors, in the different branches, and they came together nationally and they won on that issue. And this is the sort of thing that we need to be doing in FE. Look, in Scotland, they've got not a perfect deal, but they do have a national deal. In the north of Ireland, they have been fighting and they have got improved offers. In Wales, they have a national agreement. But in England, oh no. Oh, we'll do one thing at South Thames, we'll do one thing at West London, we'll do one thing here, one thing somewhere else. And the leadership within the union are really not getting it, that we, the membership, it's our union, and we actually want to have national negotiating. We want to have parity, as John Fones said, with the teachers, and we need to have a decent starting salary. And we need to look at these examples of comrades in other industrial sectors who have stuck together and have achieved those gains. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will call back in the speakers in the order that they've spoken to go around. If you've got comments to come back on, then do. If you don't, that's also fine. So.
Yeah, I think the only thing I just picked up in here is huge amount of the anger, frustration, and also the disconnection from the line of the national, the union, the line that where they're going. In one sense, it's understandable. If you have not achieved anything in the last the 10 years for basic demands such as the parity with school teachers, the workloads, the getting the HPLs to be fractionalized, then what is the purpose of the union? At least they should come off to say that we can't do that. It's not going to be one of our demands, and they should be honest with the members. I can understand the frustration and anger. But what we can't afford is that basically completely being disconnected from the heart and basically the struggle. If you are disconnected, it's going to be much worse than where we are right now. I mean, it's quite easy to be frustrated. I can see that sometimes when I talk to our members, they really have a gone, and rightly so. And because they see us the basically between the union, the headquarters and the local level, they have a gone, rightly so. But what we can't do, we can't, basically demoralize and just put ourselves in a small corner to, feel more isolated and less powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm just reflecting on what other people have said about the way we are so divided at the moment, and I'm also reflecting on something that, well, I think it must have been the chair of the AOC panel said in negotiation a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about action that other people have taken across the country. And he said, well, I know people in FE talk about train drivers and doctors and teachers, but do you know it wouldn't matter if people in FE came out on strike, because no one would notice. Well, you might get that impression from some of our politicians at the moment. I've been listening to Bridget Phillipson being interviewed on a number of different news programmes and podcasts. I've only once heard her mention further education, and she didn't get it right then. She didn't understand what it was about. And to be perfectly honest, the people who were interviewing her don't understand further education either. I don't think enough people do. But I think what is forgotten in all of this discussion about whether or not we can take action that people notice and whether people really know what FE is that we did have some sort of an award a couple of years ago when some colleges achieved 6.5%. It wasn't good, but some colleges got that. But that was on the back of an awful lot of colleges being balloted. And in my region, for example, I think we had 13 colleges in the southwest who were all involved in disputes and indeed balloting for action. And we have to remember that perhaps the best strike you can take is the one, or the best strike is the one you don't need to take, because you've been so forceful. And you have such a lot of power in your back pocket because your members have actually voted to do something, that at that point, the people on the other side of the table are very likely to start listening to you serious. And I think that is what happened a couple of years ago when so many colleges across the country did get a deal. Because people were really ready and prepared to go on strike. And indeed, some people did go on strike. And yes, I hear all of the arguments about other people taking the benefits when we go on strike. And quite honestly, I believe that they know very well that they're taking the benefits that we're going on strike. But nevertheless, there are plenty of us who are prepared to do that. But I think when we do that in large numbers, then we send a very, very strong signal, definitely to our principals. We send a strong signal to the AOC, and yes, we might even send a signal to the DFE as well. And I think that's why we need to think again about national action. We shouldn't just be saying we cannot do it. Yes, we did try something that approached national action a few years ago now, right? And it definitely had an effect. And I think we need to return to that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks everyone. Obviously there's a lot of frustration, but also this is the time. We have to seize the time because, when you get people like Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor and the Deputy PM Angela Rayner saying this is a watershed moment for employment rights and the Employment Rights Bill, this is a time when we have to push that window open more. They're kind of here, they've kind of opened the window a bit, kind of like fudged it a bit, and the unions have like tried to open it more. But we have to come in on the back now and say, no, we need to have those employment rights now. When you say no 0-hour contracts and that you're going to take people to court if you don't get those, we have to make that a reality. How do we do it? We do it with the strongest action we can now. And I like the point that Christine made. We have to keep stressing it. Where is our bus ticket? I like that. We can use those kinds of arguments to say, look, our members are facing, not just our students are facing a cost of living crisis, but so are we. And we have an opportunity next week with the Lobby of Parliament. We've had lobbies of Parliament before with the ESOL campaign where we forced a U-turn. It is possible. The union did come in behind that in a big way. And now is the time when the union can do that. I believe that is possible. And I think that now is the time when we have to force that argument, not just with UCU, but with a broader range of people in our colleges, with Unison and other unions in our colleges. So as they say, you have to take that forward. See you at the lobby if you're coming next week of Parliament, and for the national demonstration, which I think is taking place sometime after that, or it should be.
Thank you. Just before anyone comes back in, we've got everyone's email addresses, so we'll kind of write up some of the things that we've been discussing today and some of the points that have come out today, and then send it out of what we want to do, and particularly about this indicative ballot as well. So,
yeah, couple of points. First of all, the HPLs. I want to say about that very quickly because it is a crucial point. We went on strike in 2016 was it 16?
16 and then 17.
Then 17. Over, and a demand was pay and also a fractionalisation of the hourly pay. And we won. That was one of the most important disputes I think we've done. And our argument, it is connected, I'm not sure you know anyway, I'm telling you this, but we've got argument, but it's about racism, it's about sexism.
It is, yes.
Because the first thing we did, we said, okay, I remember being in negotiations with my employer, there'd be 3 women on the other side who were managers, and then myself and the other woman on the other side. And we said, look, you know, and he said, it's quite clear that, we've got real issues. I said, look at our figures. I said, look at the figures here. We did our work. We show the vast majority of HPLs are women. Because I've got every college. I'll be very surprised I've been contradicted. Disproportionately, they're of colour. Now, racism is just not about name calling. I'm sure people can tell me that's not okay. It's about institutionalisation. That's what racism is. But just put the eyes on the name calling, the psychological impact, all those horrible things, horrible as they are. But that's not the key problem. The problem is behind. It's what believe underneath the scene. It's the institutionalisation of racism. That's what is the case. The lack of opportunity, which is structured, baked into our society. And FE, look at how you pay lecturers. That's what you see. Baked in is discrimination. I remember the Gen X, and they turn around and say, "Okay, it's well, but it's not women don't want to work full time." So they sort of pin money up and sounds like me, it's bollocks, right? So it's okay, man. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll tell you what to do. Let's go around all those HPL women and ask every single one of them if they would like a permanent post.
Well, the same
All
as
right.
they've got at the moment.
Of course. And if they say yes, we'll give them. And if they say no, we'll say fair enough. We're not forced to go anywhere. They never took us up on that. We went on strike and we won. Right? So, yeah, but the first thing to do is do the basic maths. And also, I've got the other thing that we had at the time was 60, let me get this right, it was 7 years ago. That's right, it was the 60% of the hours taught in the college were done by 40% of lecturers who are hourly paid. Right? These exploitative, stroke racist, sexist, institutionalized, baked-in discrimination is something we need to take up and go to management with around the question of hourly paid lecturers and all the rest of it. So I think that's the way we dealt with it, and it's effective and powerful. I think we could do that elsewhere to do the same kind of thing. So that's that point. On the question directly from Safi about the AOC, it's a shame David's gone. I think he's gone now. So I wanted to come back on this. Look, they have told a lie. And I think Richard's point is that now it's got round to people. The AOC don't have power to do something. They do. They do. They're doing it. They're doing it now. We are now in negotiations with the AOC over binding agreement. Now, how far that will go depends on our muscle, quite frankly, but they are in it. They can do that. They have made a choice not to do it over a number of years because they had a vested interest on not having it. Now, they think differently. Now, what is true, of course, to make sure that if they ever got to that situation, then they need funding. Now, that's why the AOC doesn't have any power. That's when the DFE, Department for Education, have to step in and fund whatever kind of, we come up with. So I get your point about what kind of things we find. Well, we can write out the detail is important, but at the moment it's just getting people to accept the idea. Look, it is very straightforward. There is unevenness in our side, our colleges and our colleges across the board. We will always have a real problem in our sector if we have somebody 2 miles down the road on 10% less pay than somebody 2 miles the other way. I mean, Reg is an A-level teacher teaching sociology at Westminster Kingsway. Less than half a mile up the road in the Angel, doing a sociology teaching or in the NEU, part of my college, but in the NEU, on a 10% higher wage, doing exactly the same job, less than half an hour, probably teaching more people in the classrooms. Once we have that disparity, we're always going to be weak. Unless we get over that problem, then that's it. That's why national binding is so important. So if we even up, I'm not saying even if we succeeded in getting national binding, they'll offer peanuts. Look at this. They'll go, right, we've got national binding, we'll offer you half a percent with strings or something of this bloody nature. Well, clearly they would do, right? But that's what we have to then fight nationally to force the hand to do so. So I'm not suggesting for one moment just because you have national binding, you're paid this rising. What it does allow us to do, one, it levels everybody up. by law to say everybody has the same, and that helps us to fight equally and not allow the employer to divide us in the way John well described. Can't accept that, John, because we do somebody else, you'll be sacking somebody else down the road and so on and so forth. As soon as you have binding agreements, that is not an argument anymore, and therefore places us in a stronger position to be able to fight to raise everybody's ship upwards and on a decent level and a decent way. That's the argument about national bargaining, which I think the National Union now is apparently behind and so on. Problem is they have no teeth. So concrete things, how do we get out, how do we make sure that happens? Well, I think first of all, frustration, I'm 62 now, I've been doing this now for 40 years, 25 of which inside further education, having the same rubbish leadership year in, year out, day in, day out, month after month. It's just part of life. You know, it's frustrating, that's it is, but until we have a society we live on, there'll always be bosses and there'll always be trade union leaders who are crazy enough to creep up their arses, right? That is going to be the problem. The question, right, is do we have an organised force in the college at the base of our society to do something about it? If we can do that, then we can do what we want. Don't let frustration get at the best of us, because we do, they always win, always win. And that's why Wales Delmy described the frustration, and she can channel that, as she always does, to try and move her section towards how organising effect to organise everybody at level, then upwards inside of it. Because, and I think let's be honest with members, we shouldn't be the ones, and I understand your point, Mr. We shouldn't be the ones who said, oh, you're the leadership of the union. No, I'm not in the leadership. I'm quite honest with people. If the leadership are crap and not do what you want them to do, after we've been taking promotion, I'll tell them they're crap. I mean, probably in FE, too many people don't know what's going on. In HE, more people know what's going on with the national unions because they've had a fight and they're angry and they know who to blame for that. In FE, they're not sure. They blame us. Who's the vice president? Is there an FEC? Nobody knows. We're too quiet. And that's why I think to be more bullshit. Yes, we should be more bloody bullshit. It's your union. You make the points about in the thing, and we shape the arguments. We shape what we want to take on. So I think the democracy, we need to be a little bit more in their faces about what we're doing, what we want them to do, and your leaders. You get there to make sure you're putting those arguments in those different quarters. You can guarantee Arby to be it, and guarantee everybody to do it, and the rest of them around this table and so on. So I hope what comes out of this, have we agreed on a show of hands that we should try and go for an indicative ballot over try and go not just our 20 colleges, can we get 20 more? And we'll have to work out over the next 3 weeks, and we set a date, and we go 2 or 3 weeks, and we all go for an indicative ballot over 5%. Do we like that idea?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay, great, all right, lovely. That seems not even on NENCOM, I think that was unanimous, excellent. So we'll definitely do that, and we'll get that all organised. But I don't think, the last point is, I don't believe, I think Nina's educational arguments about adult education and so on are vital here. We started this union, UCU, God knows how many years ago now, 20 or 50 years ago, and we had to fight for an argument. This might seem strange now, we had to fight for an argument about how education and economics aren't separate things. The fight over conditions of service are the same fight over the question of education. They're a united struggle. So defend jobs and defend education on a poster was something we had to fight for, by the way. They didn't want those, they wanted to keep it separate. And I'll tell you for one, this is my last point, it's so important to get. Well, being old means you remember things. Usually, unless you get, like me, I'll just make up a few things well. But if you throw your mind, I remember the arguments. The same arguments now I would have when I first joined the union. But this was the difference. So people now argue against what we're doing and say, I'm for this, but I'm for striking. Yeah, I'm for striking. Definitely I'd like to strike. Of course I would do. I'll be there on the picket lines. I joined the picket line. It wasn't, no, it was somebody else, but I joined it and so on. They always say that now. But they didn't say that when they had national action. When we had national action, their arguments were, and they were the same ones when we get national action back. We don't like strikes, and strikes hurt our students. Remember that's the boss's argument being echoed in the rank of argument. That's what they used to always argue. When we first struck with the ADU, my good God, they went absolutely up. Remember it? They went absolutely doodle alley about striking with the ADU. Oh, why we bothered striking with the ADU? Unison people aren't out. in the colleges, that's what they do. Now, who can we get to unite with? What come on strike? Unison. Aha, Unison will come out strike. So why bother at all? We're not going to come out with the NEU. And the successful strike was with the NEU. Do you remember it? Yeah, 2008. It was a fantastic strike, right? But they hated it. They absolutely hated it. They did everything possible to stop that strike and the further strike. These people are anti-strike. Starmer, just think Starmer. The idea that Starmer doesn't exist in our unit, they do, in the heads and in the political souls of the people who run our national union. That's what you have to think about. That's what we're fighting against. It's contested politically, and that's why I never apologise for being political. You know, that's why we always fight for the road Palestine, always fight about racism, always fight about secularism, always fight about marketisation and all the rest of stuff. Because when we fight for our position, it's a political question. It's a political choice by our masters or mistresses not to be able to get our money in our pockets, and that's where we are at this moment of time. It seems to me. So solidarity, everybody. I find it really very helpful conversation today. I think we also need to try and use this to create the mechanisms and networks inside our union to try and make sure we take back our union to a more effective one to try and fight things. We've moved it a little bit, need to do a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Is it too late?
Good.
Commentary Adult Education, we have a restructure starting from January, and the level 2, level 3 managers who were on the same contract as us, part of the collective agreement. They were on the same collective agreement with the council, that the UCU, the same contract. Well, they were offered new jobs with more money or redundancy. So a lot of the managers took redundancy because they were sort of in their 60s. And then the others went for the jobs because it was more money. The head of service said, oh, well, 50% of the manager's jobs is really just handling data. So we're going to bring in data streamlining. And so we're going to reduce everybody's workload. So, and also the danger was that some of the managers got into conversation with head of service, which Nine warned me about, and thought that they were lured into these new jobs because, oh, well, if you don't like the new job, you have 4 weeks trial period where you can still leave and you can still have your redundancy. Now, she said that to them, but then that was a different story from HR, because they said after they'd gone for the jobs, got the jobs, but not started them yet because they got the jobs in about May. And then they were all told, oh no, you can't have your 4-week trial period. And I minuted it. I know that they were speaking to head of service, and I know that she misled them. Now we're in the situation where the level 1 lecturers are picking up work from the managers and having to put learners onto the enrolment system. We're having to do so many jobs, and those who've got these new jobs in management are doing it a 60-hour week. Now they're complaining. It's too late now. We did take strike action. And it did take strike action, so that's it.
Yeah, it's a really good example of that we need to be taking action. There's the plenary going to happen in 5 minutes. We will send out all of the stuff, kind of details of what we've been talking in the next steps. There is also the pub straight way up in plenary, where we can also have discussion, share different stories, talk about other things, and the Marlborough Arms, Arms, yeah. The back room of the Marlborough Arms, we see you there at the first.
Thank you, everyone online.
Thanks. See you at the plenary. Bye.
She replied to me that she didn't contact me. She wasn't